A mid-sized firm specializing in commercial renovations. Nothing fancy, but solid. 15 full-time employees, contracts booked 6 months out, and a reputation for finishing ahead of schedule. I met my wife Rachel 7 years ago at a charity gala my company sponsored. She was 26 then, working as an events coordinator. Beautiful in that effortless way that made men stupid. I wasn't typically stupid, but I'd been lonely after losing my mother, and Rachel filled spaces in my life I didn't know were empty. We married within a year. Our daughter Emma came 2 years later. She's 5 now, with Rachel's dark hair and what I believed were my gray eyes. But lately the foundation I'd built felt unstable. Rachel had grown distant, always on her phone, taking calls in other rooms. When I asked about it, she blamed stress from her new position as director of events at the Grandview Hotel. I wanted to believe her. The vasectomy was her idea. "We have Emma. She's perfect. Why risk another pregnancy at my age?" she said so reasonably, her hand on my arm. "Besides, you said yourself you wanted to focus on expanding the business." I agreed, though something in her urgency bothered me. Dr. Marcus Webb came highly recommended. The consultation was brief but professional. Webb was mid-40s, confident in that way surgeons often are, with steel gray hair and hands that moved with practiced precision. "Simple procedure. You'll be in and out in under an hour," he said, barely making eye contact as he reviewed consent forms. The morning of the procedure, Rachel drove me to the clinic. She seemed nervous, checking her phone repeatedly in the waiting room. "You okay?" I asked. "Fine. Just worried about you." She kissed my forehead, but her eyes darted toward the hallway where Dr. Webb had just disappeared. The anesthesia came through an IV, and I felt consciousness sliding away as the surgical nurse adjusted the monitors above me. "Count backward from 10, she instructed. 10, 9, 8, then nothing, until the voices pulled me back to the surface. My mind floated in that strange space between consciousness and sleep. I could hear voices but couldn't open my eyes, couldn't move. The anesthesia held me suspended. "Is his wife still in the waiting room?" Dr. Webb's voice, low and tense. "Yes, doctor," the nurse replied, uncertain. "Good. After we finish, I need you to give her this envelope. Don't let him see it. She knows it's coming." My heart rate spiked, but the monitors didn't alarm. The pills kept my body still, even as my mind screamed to full alertness. I focused on keeping my breathing steady, my eyes closed. "Doctor, I'm not comfortable," the nurse started. "You're paid to assist, not to have opinions. Give her the envelope. When he's in recovery, she'll be alone in the consultation room. Understood?" A pause. "Yes, doctor." I heard paper rustling, then footsteps moving away. I forced myself to remain motionless as the procedure continued. My mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. What was in that envelope? Why did Rachel know it was coming? How long had they been planning this? 30 minutes later, they wheeled me into recovery. I kept my eyes mostly closed, watching through slitted lids as the nurse, her name tag read Torres, moved nervously around the room. She kept glancing at the door, at the envelope partially visible in her scrub pocket. Rachel appeared in the doorway. "Can I see him?" "He's still coming out of it," Nurse Torres said. "Dr. Webb wanted to speak with you first. Consultation room 2 down the hall." Perfect, I thought. They think I'm still unconscious. As soon as Rachel left, I forced my eyes open wider. "Water," I croaked. Nurse Torres jumped. "Mr. Mitchell, you're awake earlier than expected." "Bathroom," I managed, sitting up carefully. My head spun genuinely from the anesthesia, but my mind was razor sharp. "Let me help you." "I got it." I stood, steadier than I should have been, and shuffled toward the small bathroom connected to the recovery room. Once inside, I locked the door and moved quickly to the small window overlooking the hallway. From this angle, I could see directly into consultation room 2 through its interior window. Rachel sat across from Dr. Webb. The surgeon handed her an envelope, the same one I'd heard them discuss. Rachel's hand trembled as she opened it. I watched her face transform. Shock, then something that looked almost like satisfaction, then tears. But they weren't tears of sadness. I'd been married to this woman for 6 years. I knew her tells. These were tears of relief. Dr. Webb reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. The gesture was too familiar, too intimate. They spoke. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the body language. This wasn't a doctor comforting a patient's wife. This was something else entirely. Rachel glanced toward the door, tucked the envelope into her purse, and wiped her eyes. She stood, and so did Webb. For just a moment, their hands lingered together. I moved away from the window and genuinely vomited into the toilet. The anesthesia, The betrayal, the sheer fury rising in my chest, it all combined into physical revulsion. When I emerged, pale and shaking, Nurse Torres looked concerned. "Mr. Mitchell, you should sit down. Where's my wife?" "She just left. She said she had an emergency at work, but she'll pick you up in 2 hours when you're clear to leave." Of course she did. I nodded slowly, my mind already working through the next steps. "Can I rest in here? Close the door." "Of course. I'll check on you in 30 minutes. As soon as she left, I pulled out my phone. The anesthesia was wearing off fast. Maybe I'd metabolized it quicker than expected, or maybe pure adrenaline was burning through it. I opened my Secure Notes app and began typing everything I'd seen and heard. Then I made a call. "Riddle Investigations," a gruff voice answered. "Derek, it's me. I need you to do something, and I need absolute discretion." Derek Riddle had been my friend since high school. After 20 years as an Army CID investigator, Derek had opened a private investigation firm in our hometown. He was thorough, loyal, and completely trustworthy. Name it. "I need you to run a deep background check on Dr. Marcus Webb. Everything. Where he's worked, any complaints, his personal life, financial records if you can access them. And I need surveillance on my wife Rachel starting today." Silence on the other end then. "What's going on?" "I'll explain later. Can you do it?" "Consider it done. I'll have preliminary info by tomorrow morning." I ended the call as Nurse Torres knocked on the door. "Mr. Mitchell, how are you feeling?" "Better," I said, opening the door with a weak smile. "Sorry about that. Anesthesia always hits me hard." She looked relieved. "That's normal. Rest now. Your wife will be back soon." But I didn't rest. I lay on the recovery bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind assembling pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known existed until 2 hours ago. Whatever was in that envelope, it was important enough for a surgeon to risk his medical license. Important enough for Rachel to abandon me immediately after my procedure. Important enough for them to meet secretly, touch hands like lovers. And I was going to find out exactly what it was. 2 days later, I sat in Derek's office above a pawn shop on 7th Street. The space was cluttered with filing cabinets, old coffee cups, and a wall covered in maps and photographs. Derek himself looked like he'd stepped out of a detective novel, 6'2", barrel-chested with a gray beard and perpetually suspicious eyes. "You're not going to like what I found," Derek said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. I opened it. The first page showed Dr. Marcus Webb's professional history, Hopkins Medical School, residency at Mass General, board-certified in urology. Clean record until Derek's notes highlighted something interesting. 3 years ago, Webb worked at St. Catherine's Hospital in Philadelphia, Derek explained. He left abruptly. No official reason given, but I called in a favor with a friend who works hospital administration. Rumor was he was involved with a patient's wife. Hospital brass gave him the choice: resign quietly or face an ethics investigation. He chose to resign, moved here, joined Riverside Medical Center. Derek pulled out another document. But here's where it gets interesting. Webb owns a condo in the Riverside Towers. Expensive place, way above what a surgeon at a mid-tier medical center should afford. I did some digging into his financials. "How did you—" "Don't ask questions you don't want answered," Derek grinned. "Point is, Webb's been receiving regular cash deposits. 5,000 here, 8,000 there, always just under the reporting threshold. They go back about 2 years. I felt my stomach tighten. 2 years. That's when Rachel started her new job at the Grandview. Right. And guess where Dr. Webb's condo is located? Let me guess. Direct view of the Grandview Hotel. Derek nodded grimly. I've had a surveillance team on your wife for the past 48 hours. She's been to that condo 3 times. Once the day of your surgery, once yesterday afternoon, and once this morning after dropping Emma at school. The folder contained timestamps showing Rachel entering the Riverside Towers, staying between 90 minutes and 3 hours each visit. My hands clenched around the folder. They're having an affair. Looks that way, but there's more. Derek pulled out another set of documents. I also ran a background on Rachel. Did you know she grew up in Philadelphia? I looked up sharply. She told me she was from Rhode Island. She lied. Born and raised in Philadelphia, attended Boston College. She worked as an events coordinator for the Fairmont Copley Plaza, which is where Dr. Webb was living during his time at St. Catherine's Hospital. The implications hit me like a physical blow. They knew each other before she met me. That's my theory. I'm researching social media archives and old newspaper society pages. If they were seen together at any events back then, we'll find it. I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the street below. A woman pushed a stroller. A man walked his dog. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that my entire existence had been revealed as a carefully constructed lie. "What was in the envelope?" Derek asked quietly. "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Keep the surveillance going, document everything. Where she goes, who she talks to, how long she stays. I need to know if anyone else is involved in whatever this is." Derek studied me for a long moment. The guy I knew in high school would have charged in swinging. "You've gotten smarter." "I've gotten patient. There's a difference." Over the next week, I played the role of recovering husband perfectly. I winced appropriately when getting up from chairs. I let Rachel fuss over me with ice packs and pain medication. I smiled at Emma and helped her with her kindergarten homework, while Rachel took increasingly frequent work calls in our bedroom. But every moment I was watching, cataloging, planning, I noticed Rachel had started locking her phone, something she'd never done before. She'd changed her laptop password. She was deleting text messages immediately after reading them. Amateur mistakes, I thought. She thinks I'm too trusting to notice. On day 6, I made my move. Rachel had left her purse on the kitchen counter while she showered. I had maybe 7 minutes. I'd already prepared, ordering a small camera from Derek's security equipment supplier. Inside Rachel's purse, I found her spare phone. Of course she had a spare phone. I powered it on quickly. No password on this one, arrogant of her. I began photographing everything. Text messages to Marcus, meeting times, coded language that wasn't really coded at all. Then I found the photos, medical documents, lab results. The header read Riverside Medical Center Paternity Analysis. My heart stopped. The results showed a DNA comparison between sample A, listed as me, and sample B, minor female Emma Mitchell. Probability of paternity, 0%. The paper trembled in my hands. Emma wasn't my daughter. 5 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, first days of school, all built on a lie. But even through the shock and rage, a part of my mind noted something strange about the document. The dates didn't quite line up. The sample collection date for me was listed as 3 weeks ago, before my vasectomy. When had they collected my DNA? I heard the shower turn off. Quickly, I returned everything to Rachel's purse exactly as I'd found it, powered off the spare phone, and moved to the kitchen sink to wash dishes, forcing my hands to stay steady. Rachel emerged 15 minutes later, hair damp, wearing her favorite silk robe. She smiled at me, that same smile that had once made me feel like the luckiest man alive. "Feeling better today?" she asked, kissing my cheek. "Much better," I replied, returning her smile. "Actually, I was thinking we should do something special this weekend. Just the 3 of us. Maybe that new Italian place Emma's been asking about?" Rachel's smile faltered almost imperceptibly. "This weekend I actually have a work event, the mayor's charity gala. You know how important it is." "Of course. Maybe next weekend then." "Definitely." She squeezed my arm and moved past me to grab her purse. I watched her check to make sure everything was in place. Satisfied, she headed upstairs. I pulled out my phone and texted Derek. "Found the envelope contents. We need to meet tonight." The response came immediately. "I have news too. 8 p.m., my office." That evening, Derek's office was dark except for the desk lamp. When I arrived, my friend had spread documents across every available surface, a spider web of connections. "Before you tell me what you found, look at this," Derek said, pointing to a blown-up photograph on his wall. It showed a charity event from 7 years ago in Philadelphia. In the background, barely visible, a younger Rachel stood next to Dr. Marcus Webb. They were at a hospital fundraiser for St. Catherine S. "They knew each other," I said flatly. "In Philadelphia. Before any of this." "Knew each other? They were engaged?" The room tilted. "What?" Derek pulled out a newspaper clipping from the Boston Globe Society pages, dated 8 years ago. The headline read, "Boston socialite Rachel Hayes announces engagement to Dr. Marcus Webb." There was a photo of Rachel, younger and radiant, holding up her left hand to show an engagement ring. Webb stood beside her, looking possessive and proud. "What happened?" My voice came out strangled. From what I can piece together from old social media posts and friends of friends, the engagement fell apart about 6 months after this announcement. Webb was already married to a woman named Jennifer Webb. He'd been having an affair with Rachel, promised to leave his wife, but never did. Rachel found out when Jennifer showed up at her apartment. Derek pulled up more documents. Jennifer filed for divorce shortly after. It got ugly. She took him to the cleaners, got the house, half his pension, substantial alimony. That's why Webb is living in a condo instead of some mansion. The divorce decimated him financially, and Rachel disappeared from Philadelphia society, changed her social media to private, stopped showing up at events. About 6 months later, she resurfaced in Providence, Rhode Island, working at a different hotel. That's the version of her history she sold you. I sank into a chair. Then she moved here to my city. Found me. I don't think she found you randomly. Look at this. Derek spread out more documents, property records, business filings. When did you meet Rachel? 7 years ago at the Children's Hospital Charity Gala my company sponsored. Right. Now look at who planned that event. Derek slid over an invoice. The events coordinator listed was Rachel Hayes, contracted through the Grandview Hotel's event planning service. She just started at the Grandview, I said slowly. She told me it was her first big event in a new city, that she was nervous about making a good impression. Now look at when Webb moved to this city and joined Riverside Medical Center. I checked the dates. 7 years and 2 months ago, just before Rachel arrived. They planned this, I whispered. From the beginning, they moved here together. She took a job that would put her in contact with wealthy men, and she targeted me specifically. Mitchell Construction was featured in the business section 2 months before that gala, Derek said. Article about your company winning the contract to renovate the old courthouse. It mentioned you were single, 31 years old, and had just inherited the company after your father's passing. You were vulnerable and wealthy. Perfect mark. The pieces snapped together with horrifying clarity. The whirlwind romance, Rachel's eagerness to get married, the pregnancy that came so quickly. Emma, I said suddenly, the paternity test. When was she born? Derek checked his files. July 15th, 6 years ago. You got married in November, 7 years ago. I did the math, which means Rachel would have gotten pregnant in October, barely a month after we met. Or she was already pregnant when she met you. The rage that swept through me was cold and calculating. Show me what else you found. Derek laid it out piece by piece. Financial records showing Rachel had been systematically taking money from our joint account. Small amounts, never enough to trigger my attention. But over 5 years, it added up to nearly $200,000. Records of the Riverside Towers condo in Webb's name, but with Rachel listed as an authorized guest with her own key card, dated back 3 years. She's been living a double life, I said, playing wife and mother in my house while maintaining a relationship with Webb. But why go through all this? Why not just divorce you? That's where it gets really interesting, Derek said, pulling out the final set of documents. Your life insurance policy. You updated it 2 years ago, remember? After Emma was born and you wanted to make sure she was protected. I remembered. $2 million with Rachel as the sole beneficiary. If something happened to me, Emma would inherit when she turned 25. But until then, Rachel would control everything. They're waiting for me to die, I said slowly. But I'm healthy. I could live another 40 years. Unless something happened to you, an accident maybe. Construction sites are dangerous places. Derek's voice was grim. I'm not saying they're actively planning to eliminate you, but with that life insurance policy and the way they've positioned everything, they've been setting up their exit strategy. I stood and paced the small office. The vasectomy. Rachel insisted on it. Why? Maybe to make sure there'd be no more children, no additional claims on the estate. But I was thinking about the paternity test, the dates that didn't line up. Derek, I need you to do something for me. Can you get access to medical records? Depends whose records and how legal you want it to be. Not very legal. I need to know if Dr. Webb has been treating me as a patient before the vasectomy. I need to know what procedures I've had at Riverside Medical Center. Derek made a note. I'll see what I can do. Might take a few days. I also need you to find Jennifer Webb, the ex-wife. I want to talk to her. Why? Because if anyone knows how Marcus Webb operates, it's the woman he betrayed. And I'm betting she'd love to help take him down. Derek grinned, showing teeth. Now you're thinking like a hunter instead of prey. I'll find her. 3 days later, I sat in a coffee shop in Newton, Massachusetts, across from Jennifer Webb. She was 49, still striking but clearly tired of life's disappointments. Her platinum hair framed eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. Thanks for meeting me, Mrs. Webb. It's Miss Morrison now, she said, taking a sip of her latte. Your investigator said you wanted to talk about Marcus. I'm guessing he's done something awful. You could say that. I slid a photo across the table. Rachel and Marcus entering Riverside Towers together, time-stamped from last week. Jennifer's face went hard. "Rachel Hayes," she muttered. "Should have known she'd show up again. She's like bad luck you can't shake." "You know her?" "Know her? She ruined my marriage. Though Marcus did most of the damage himself, Rachel was just the spark. Young, ambitious, saw a rich doctor and decided he was her ticket." "What happened?" "They met at a hospital fundraiser. Marcus fell fast. Or thought he did. Started cheating, promised to leave me, said we'd divorce and he'd marry her. Bought her a ring before he even told me he wanted out. I found out from a reporter calling to congratulate me on my husband's engagement." Jennifer smiled without humor. "I went to Rachel's apartment, told her what kind of man Marcus really was, showed her the bank records, our mortgage, the college fund he'd raided to buy her gifts. What did she do? She dumped him. Fast. Marcus lost it. He'd already gone public with the engagement, and when she backed out, it wrecked his reputation at the hospital. They started digging into his conduct. He had to resign before they fired him. And you divorced him? Oh, I made sure it hurt. Took the house, his pension, generous alimony. He lost everything he cared about." She leaned forward. "But Marcus Webb never forgives. In his mind, Rachel and I teamed up to ruin him. He blamed us both. So he'd want revenge on her. Unless they made up, turned their anger toward the world instead. Why are you really here, Mr. Mitchell?" I told her everything. What I'd overheard during surgery, the hidden envelope, the fake paternity test, and the web of lies stretching 7 years. When I finished, she sat silent for a moment. "They're playing the long game," she said. "Marcus can wait when it suits him. And if Rachel helped him..." She reached for her phone. "Let me see the paternity test." I showed her the photo. She studied it, then started laughing. Sharp, bitter laughter. "What's so funny?" I asked. "This thing's fake. Look, the font on the header doesn't match the signature line. Riverside Medical doesn't format reports like that. I know because my daughter had tests there last year." My pulse jumped. "So Emma might really be mine?" "I'm saying Marcus has forged medical files before. That's part of why he left Philadelphia. A patient accused him of changing a biopsy to fake a cancer diagnosis, to push a pricey treatment. We settled out of court." I stared at her. "If the test is fake, why make it at all?" She gave a thin smile. "Psychology. It makes you question your wife, your child, yourself. A man in that state makes mistakes. They want me unstable. They want you dead, or at least easy to destroy. A man who finds out his kid isn't his might snap, confront his wife, have an accident. Then Rachel inherits everything. She and Marcus live happily ever after on your money." I felt a chill crawl through me. Jennifer leaned closer. "Marcus keeps records, journals, notes, everything. When we divorced, my lawyer subpoenaed them. Decades of entries, affairs, schemes, grudges. That's how he thinks." "Do you still have copies?" "My lawyer does. I can get them. Marcus wrecked my life. If you're planning to stop him, I want in." We exchanged numbers. She promised to send the records in 2 days. I promised updates. As we stood to leave, she touched my arm. "One more thing. Marcus once mentioned Rachel's sister. Younger, more practical. He said she'd warned Rachel about him. Her last name was Hayes. Do you remember the first name?" "Sarah," I said. "Sarah Hayes." Another thread to pull. Driving back, I called Derek. "I need you to find Sarah Hayes, Rachel's sister. See if she's tied to any of this." "On it," he said. "Also, I got into Webb's medical system. You need to see this." "What did you find?" "You've been his patient longer than you think. Come in now." When I arrived, Derek's board covered the wall. Photos, documents, red string everywhere. In the center, a medical chart with my name. "You've had appointments at Riverside you don't remember," he said. 3 years ago, you did a physical for an insurance renewal. Remember?" I nodded. "Yeah, basic stuff. Blood work, EKG. Right, but the lab was Riverside's, and Webb signed the report. He had access to your samples. He kept my DNA? More than that. He's been tracking your health," Derek said, pointing to the files. "Look at this." Derek pulled up a stack of medical files. 2 years back, you had what looked like a stomach bug. You went to Riverside ER. Webb wasn't the on-call doc, but he put himself on your case. He ordered extra tests you never knew about. I skimmed the pages. Metabolic panel, hormone tests, genetic screens for inherited illness. He was checking if I had some disease that would eliminate me on its own, I said, slow. So he could write a medical record. And when he didn't find anything that would drop you dead, Derek said, they made one up. He slid the last file across the table. Your vasectomy. Read the op note. Webb logged bad bleed and extra surgery, but you had no such trouble, right? No, I healed fine. Barely hurt after day 1. Exactly. There were no issues, yet the chart says there were. And that chart has a waiver you signed. If you ever get an infection, damage, or cancer in that area later, they can blame the vasectomy. It all points to surgical damage. It hit me hard. They made a paper trail to explain my end, make it look like it came from the body or from a botched surgery. Or make it look like malpractice, Derek said. That way Rachel plays the grieving widow. She sues the hospital, takes a payout and your life insurance. She and Webb wait a bit, then get back together. I walked the small room thinking. They planned this for years. The whole life, the vows, Emma, the move, all set to frame me. One more piece, Derek said, handing me a bank printout. Those cash deposits to Webb, I traced them. They come from an offshore account owned by a shell company. The filings list 2 officers, Marcus Webb and Sarah Kaufman. Kaufman? I said. Jennifer said Rachel's sister was Sarah Hayes. Sarah Hayes married Lloyd Kaufman years ago, Derek said. She's a forensic accountant. She lives 2 hours from here. His face turned hard. Rachel's sister is in on it. She laundered the money and made the shell firms. This isn't just an affair and a fake paternity test. This is a pro scheme. The last parts clicked into place. 3 of them, Webb, Rachel, Sarah, they ran a long con on me. I'm the mark. They want my cash, my firm, maybe my life. Any result that nets them, your money works, Derek said. I stared at the board. Then I smiled, cold. Then we give them what they want. He raised an eyebrow. Explain. They think I'll lose it and make dumb moves, so I'll act like I do. I'll let them think their plot works on the face of it. I paused. Then when they pull their trick, we'll have our own trap ready. For 2 weeks, I kept up the act. The sad, healing husband. Derek kept building the case. I hired the top document expert in the state. He declared the paternity test a fake. The DNA data was altered. The hospital headers were phony. I had a new, real paternity test done in secret through Derek's contacts. It proved what I felt. Emma is my child. Derek's money expert followed the cash trail. Sarah Kaufman had built the network for 3 years, moving funds, seeding paper trails that would later pin tax fraud or embezzlement on me. The plan was neat. When I died or went to prison, Rachel claimed innocence, took my assets, and slipped away with her sister and Webb. Then came the night I'd been waiting for. I told Rachel I had to work late. Big client meeting, I said. She was too quick to reply. No problem. Emma and I will have a girls' night. But Derek's cams showed otherwise. Within an hour, she texted Marcus, dropped Emma at a friend's for a sleepover, and drove to Riverside Towers. I sat in Derek's van across from the towers and watched the feed from the cameras he'd put in Webb's condo 2 days earlier. Getting in had cost a bribe and a bit of lock work, but the tape was gold. On screen, Rachel paced the living room. I don't see why we can't move now, she said. 7 years, Marcus. I played the part. I did my time. Patience, love, Webb said, handing her wine. The records are set. We just need the right moment. What moment? She asked. An accident, something that fits. A fall on a site, bad gear, something that can be tied to the surgical complications I logged. Webb grinned. His company's insurance will pay plus the life policy. It's perfect. Rachel drank. Are you sure? He's not dumb. He's dumb where it counts. He trusts you. He trusts doctors. He trusts the system. Webb pulled her close. We'll get the house, the money, everything. We sell Mitchell Construction, take the cash, and leave. And Emma? I felt my hands curl. She's not mine, Webb said flatly. Put her in boarding school, set up a trust. She's just collateral. Rachel paused, then nodded. We've come too far to fuss. Derek checked the feed against our recorders. The sound and video were clear. Detective Harris in place? I asked. Thomas Harris has the warrants, Derek said. He's been on this since last week. He likes medical fraud and homicide plots. I pulled out my phone. Call him. I dialed. On camera, Rachel jumped when her phone rang and glanced at the ID. Mitchell? She said, surprised. Meeting broke early. Where are you? I stopped by home. You're not there. I watched her mind work on screen. Grocery run, she said too fast. I'll be home soon. Which store? I asked. She froze. What? She shot back. Which store, Rachel? I'll meet you. Panic flashed on her face. No, I'm leaving now. See you later. She hung up. On the screen, she turned to Webb. He's asking questions. He can't know. Webb said, but he looked worried. I smiled. Derek, now. Derek phoned Harris. They're in the condo planning homicide and fraud. We've got it on tape. Move in. Within minutes, squad cars rolled up to Riverside Towers. Derek and I walked into the lobby and showed our IDs to the guards at the door. Detective Thomas Harris met us by the elevator. He was in his 50s, sharp-eyed, known for his hatred of corrupt doctors. Mr. Mitchell, he said, your investigator gave us some powerful evidence. We've got arrest warrants for Dr. Webb, fraud, conspiracy to commit homicide and malpractice, and one for your wife for conspiracy. Do you have enough to make it hold up? I asked. With the recordings, the fake documents, the bank records, and witness statements from Jennifer Morrison and others, yes. We've got them. He glanced at his watch. Let's go ruin a few lives. We rode up to Webb's floor. 4 officers followed Harris as he knocked. Dr. Webb, police, open up. Silence. Then whispers inside. The door opened. Webb stood there, pretending to stay calm. Officers, what's this about? Dr. Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit homicide, fraud, and falsifying records. Harris stepped forward with the cuffs. Rachel appeared behind him, her face pale. When she saw me, shock flashed across her face. Then realization. Then anger. You knew, she hissed. Not at first, I said quietly, but long enough to make sure you pay for what you did. You fool! Mrs. Mitchell, another officer said, stepping up. You're under arrest too. Conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and aiding malpractice. As they cuffed her, she glared at me with pure hate. Emma. Emma's my daughter. My real daughter. The paternity test you faked proved nothing. You tried to take that from me. You're not just a liar, you're a monster. She broke down crying. Mitchell, please, I love you. I never meant... Save it for the judge, I said. I turned to Harris. There's another one. Sarah Kaufman, Rachel's sister. The accountant who built their shell companies. She's already being picked up, he said. They led Rachel and Webb out in cuffs. I watched, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. It took 8 months to prepare for the trial. I split my time between running Mitchell Construction, caring for Emma, and working with prosecutors to make the case unbreakable. Emma was confused when Rachel didn't come home. I sat her down with a child therapist and explained that her mom had done terrible things and had to go away. Will she come back? She asked. I don't know, honey, but you and I will be okay, I promise. I hired a nanny, Claire Thompson, a kind woman in her 40s with grown kids. She helped Emma adjust and helped me too. The house slowly stopped feeling haunted. The evidence against them was solid. The condo recordings alone could have done it, but we'd built a case that left no doubt. The prosecutors laid it all out. The fake paternity test next to the real one, forged medical files, shell company records, Rachel's texts with Webb plotting my end, and Morrison's testimony about his fraud schemes. The recordings of them planning my accident silenced the courtroom. I was there every day. Rachel's lawyer tried to paint her as a sufferer of Webb's control, but texts showed she'd come up with homicide plans herself. Webb's lawyer claimed I was framing him, until experts proved the records fake. Sarah Kaufman, the accountant, had already flipped. When asked if she knew they meant to eliminate me, she whispered, Yes. Did you try to stop them? No. I testified too, about what I overheard during surgery, what I found, and how I uncovered the truth about my marriage. I kept my voice calm. I never looked away from the jury. They deliberated 3 hours. Webb, guilty on all counts. 25 years, license revoked, restitution ordered. Rachel, guilty. 18 years, parole after 12 if remorseful. Sarah, guilty. 8 years, parole possible after 18 months for her cooperation. As they read the verdicts, Rachel looked back at me. No regret, just fury. I felt peace for the first time. 3 months later, I stood before a judge, Emma's hand in mine. Your Honor, I said, I loved Emma for 5 years before knowing she was mine by blood. Biology matters, sure, but even if it hadn't, I'd still be here. I've always been her father, and I want it made official. The judge smiled. Adoption granted. Congratulations, Mr. Mitchell. We celebrated with ice cream and a trip to the zoo. Real joy, simple joy. 5 years passed. Claire became more than a nanny. She became family. We married 2 years ago. Emma's 12 now, happy and thriving. She stopped asking about Rachel long ago. She finally has a real family. One day, a letter came from Rachel in prison. No apology, just bitterness. She said Emma would hate me someday. I shredded it without a second thought. Rachel had lost everything. I'd kept what mattered. That evening, Emma burst into my office, beaming about her science fair win. I hugged her tight. "Dad, you're squishing me." "Sorry, kiddo, just proud." "I know," she laughed, and ran off to show Claire her ribbon. I looked at the shredded letter, then at the doorway where Emma had stood. They'd tried to break me, take my family, my life. But I fought back with patience and proof. I protected my daughter, rebuilt my home, and made justice real. Mitchell Construction thrives. Emma's safe and loved. Justice was done. That's real strength.